What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay coming back at you from Yankee and the Brit. I want to hit you up with a little bit of Minnesota Vikings news and rumors. And yes, we'll get to the Packers, the Lions, the Bears. But first, there's a lot going on in Minnesota, so I thought we would start there. First, rumors out that they have narrowed their GM search down to two candidates. That would be Kansas City's Director of Player Personnel, Ryan Poles, and the Browns VP of Football Operations, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. And I hope I said that right. Both of these guys have a lot of experience in the front office. With the Browns, it's more analytics. With Poles, it's more player evaluation. So it depends on which way you want to go. Also, I know the Bears are interested in Poles, but we'll see how that works out. Minnesota has scheduled a second interview with both of these guys, and it really looks like that the GM position is going to come down to one of these two. For me personally, I'm like analytics, but I'm more of a manalytics guy. I think there's a time and place for both. I'd really like to see Ryan Poles come over, but I think the Vikings will be fine either way they go. I think both of these guys are ready to step up and run an organization. With that said, let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings coaching search. And I know the Vikings have done a lot of first-round interviews. They have called some people in for second rounds, which they want to do with the head or with the GM that they hire, because the GM is going to have a say on who the next head coach is. But it is going to come from a candidate that the Wilfs have decided for the Minnesota Vikings head coaching search. They've had Hackett in and a bunch of other guys, Kellen Moore. But from what I've been reading and hearing, this boils down to a three-man race with a fourth sleeper. And so from what I've been hearing is Todd Bowles and Dan Quinn were the leaders for the job for the Minnesota Vikings. Those two dudes were who the Vikings were leaning towards, and then they interviewed DeMeco Ryans, who blew them away. So I guess all three of those guys have been requested to come back in for a second interview, and those are the three guys that the Vikings are leaning towards. And as a happy guy I am, and most Viking fans aren't, I'm really glad they're leaning towards a defensive guy. Like I said, I don't think the offense was the problem. I think the defense was the problem. The offense has been playing pretty well, so I think another defensive guy would be great, but I am not a guy who wants to get pigeonholed into offensive, defensive coach. I just want the best coach for the job. I'm a big fan of DeMeco Ryans. I'm a big fan of Todd Bowles. If you remember back before the Vikings hired Mike Zimmer, that job came down to Mike Zimmer and Todd Bowles. I was cheering for Todd Bowles, but I was really okay with Zimmer too. But I was looking for Todd Bowles to get the job. Next time around, maybe Todd Bowles does get this job. If he does get this job, is it more likely that Patrick Peterson will stay since he knows the system? Would it be better for Bowles to keep Patrick Peterson because it's another coach on the field, because he played for Bowles for so long in Arizona? Dan Quinn turned around the Cowboys defense real quick after they were really crappy under Jim Mora, so there's something to be said about that. Dan Quinn brought a team to a Super Bowl as a head coach with the Falcons, even up they came short, or fell short. I would kind of blame that more on Kyle Shanahan refusing to run the ball in the second half. I don't get all that. I'd have just ate the clock with a 28-point lead. And your second time around doing something, you're usually better at it. So Dan Quinn, not a bad guy. Big fan of the idea of DeMeco Ryans. I know he was dark horse, whatever you want to call it, but he was blown away. Loved what he's done with that 49ers defense this year. If it was not for that defense, they wouldn't be where they were. If you just watched the game this last weekend, they stuck it to the Packers with the defense. The defense was in Aaron Rodgers' face all day. I'm a big fan of DeMeco Ryans. I think it might be a good hire. It's really interesting to see what happens. Now, over the last couple days, they've been talking that there is a sleeper candidate in Jim Harbaugh. I personally think this is Jim Harbaugh's people getting his name out there, wanting to get a job with a team that has a shot. If you look at the Vikings offense, it's stacked up and down with skilled position players. The offensive line is getting better. You have one of the best running backs in the league, one of the best young receivers in the league. You got Adam Thielen, who's still a stud. KJ Osborne came on. You got the return of Irv Smith Jr. And if you can re-sign Conklin, that's a good tight end group. The Vikings have a lot of pieces on that defense. They are going to lose some. They need a lot of help in the secondary. What's going to happen with Danielle Hunter is another big mystery that they have to wait and see. So I don't necessarily think that Jim Harbaugh is the guy that the Vikings are going to look at. I think this might be more of Harbaugh's people throwing that out there to drum up more interest. I don't think the Vikings would go that route. And I could be completely wrong, but the Wilfs just don't seem like the type that want to deal with a hard-headed coach. Maybe I'm wrong, because winning cures all, and if they really believe they can win with Jim Harbaugh, because look what he's done at San Diego State, the 49ers, he got the Michigan Wolverines to the playoffs. I mean, so he is a winner. The guy can coach. I mean, Stanford, so he can coach. That's not the argument. Is that he seems to be a rough dude to deal with, and according to reports, he rubs people the wrong way very fast. So I don't know if that's the way they want to go, but I do like the search, or the way they're conducting the search. It is driving me a little nuts. I wish there would be some closure, because as a fan, I want to know who the next GM is. I want to know who the next coach is. I want to know what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins. And that leads me to the final rumor that I want to touch base on right now about the Minnesota Vikings. So rumors came out a couple days ago, but just one source, that DeShawn Watson was willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to the Minnesota Vikings. Well, now multiple reports have come out by different sources that this is in fact true. DeShawn Watson is interested in joining the Minnesota Vikings and would be willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to that team. Does that surprise anybody? Look at the offense he'd walk into. Like, we just named off the guys. I mean, your receiving core is deep with Thielen and Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Smith-Marsette. Like, there is some guys here that can play. You got one of the best running backs, again, in Dalvin Cook. The tight end core we just talked about. The offensive line is getting better. Still need some help. Definitely need a right guard. Probably need to replace Bradbury, too. Or maybe move him to right guard and get a new center. I don't know. I could slip in the name, the kid from Ohio State they drafted. Will he be the next right guard for the Minnesota Vikings? Do they already have him there? Christian Darrisaw looks like he's going to be fine. I really like, actually, the whole left side of that line, and Brian O'Neill is a stud, because Ezra Cleveland we all thought was going to come in as a tackle, but he moved to guard and he's playing great. I think the soft part of the Minnesota line is Bradbury at center, because he gets bull rushed and knocked around by the really big nose tackles, or the three technique, depending on who's over the top of them. And I also think that right guard is the weakest spot right now, and they really need to address right guard. But like I said, it could be a shift from Bradbury to right guard, from center, and bring in another center. I just think that the Minnesota Vikings have a great offense, and if you are DeShawn Watson, why would you not want to come play with that offense? Now, the question is, what do you have to give up to get DeShawn Watson? Could you put Kirk Cousins in that kind of a trade, which I do not think so. I don't think the Texans want an older quarterback, even though Kirk's been playing well the last couple years. I think they want to go young. Davis Mills has been playing pretty well for a rookie. I would argue that he actually was the best rookie quarterback in the class, even though Mac Jones went farther with a better team. I'm just saying what Davis Mills had to do with that Texas organization, and I thought he did a great job. I was a big fan of Davis Mills coming out of the draft, so if you watched any of our previous videos, you already know that, so maybe I'm being a little biased. But with that said, what does it cost? What does it cost to get DeShawn Watson out of Houston and to Minnesota? Now, is it 2 first-round draft picks and a bunch of other things? Cool. Like, you can do that. Work with that. But now, if you're talking four first-round draft picks, which some people are talking, that's a little much, isn't it? Unless, can I get a first for Kirk Cousins from somebody else? Could I send him to, say, New Orleans? Could I send him to New York? Could I send him somewhere that needs a quarterback? Would they be willing to give up a first for him? Because if you could get a first back, then maybe you go up to 3 first-round picks and something else. Could you package maybe Danielle Hunter with a couple first-round picks to get DeShawn Watson over? That might be a good trade, because I know the injuries, but minus the injuries, Danielle Hunter is the best young pass rusher in football, because if you look back, he was the fastest to make it to 50 sacks. I think he was 25. I could be wrong on the age, but he was the fastest to make it to 20 sacks the youngest, I guess not the fastest, the youngest to ever make it to 50 sacks, which is very impressive, but he's had injury problems the last couple years, but he's still worth a bunch on the open market because he's young and he's a beast, and you can never pay too much for pass rushers. So can you work something out if you're Minnesota to get DeShawn Watson? And as a GM coming in, would that not be something exciting to think about, that your first move could be get a guy like DeShawn Watson in? Also, I know he's got all the off-the-field stuff, and that's not what I'm doing here, because I have zero idea what happened between Deshaun Watson and them women. I'm hoping the truth comes out and the right people have the right shit happen to them. I'm just talking on the field football with Deshaun Watson. Yes, there's a lot of other stuff that's going to go along with it that you're going to have to deal with if you bring him in. But just on the field, if you're a GM, are you not excited about the prospect of bringing in a guy with the level of Deshaun Watson, making you a contender right away? If Rodgers leaves the North, you got the king of the North for a long time to come. I'm not a believer in Fields. I think he's gotten better this year, but I think the Bears hurt themselves with the Fields trade. Trading up for Fields coming off of a trade where you gave up a bunch of picks for Khalil Mack, which it looks like he's not going to be there this year. But we'll get into the Bears and the Lions and the Packers in the weeks to come. But give me your thoughts. What do you think about the GM candidates, the coaching candidates that the Vikings are looking to hire? And give me your thoughts. What do you think about Deshaun Watson being the next quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings? All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll be dropping some more videos. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, live on Facebook for MMA Underground, hosted by the Yankee and the Brit and the modern Aztec warrior, Buddy V. One world, one love. Deuces.